So I think AI has really made us crave human connection, hasn't it? And 40% think less highly of brands that use AI-generated content. So again, sobering statistics that I think should make us take a step back and think about how are we creating that content, how are we using AI in our marketing workflows, and to do it in a way that will build trust rather than erode trust. We're kicking things off here. Thank you for attending our masterclass series. We're going to be here for the day, and you see our schedule there. We've got a series of masterclass workshops all around the theme of building a future-forward brand. And there's just a couple of words in that sentence: future forward and brand. And so we're really, everything is kind of revolving around this idea of how do we position our brands for the future with all of the changes in technology and the way this is impacting our marketing workflows. And the reason we're using the word brand is because we want that to be the foundation. We really believe that being brand-centric is what is going to be the catalyst for success in these coming years. And to get us kicked off this morning, we're going to talk about building a brand operating system. So what's a brand operating system, you ask? Well, wouldn't it be great if all of the folks in our organization who are part of the marketing function, who create marketing content, our sales team, our agencies, could just sort of plug into the matrix for a few seconds and download everything that they need to know about the brand, and they would be experts in a flash. Well, that is kind of where we're moving, and what the brand operating system is intended to kind of move us in that direction. And to start things off, I want to pose a question. Is AI diluting your brand? Any initial thoughts on that? Is AI a net positive so far? Yeah? Well, before we unpack that question further, I just want to tell you a little bit more about myself. So again, my name is Shannon Zastor. I'm with Rocketship. Rocketship is a full-service growth marketing agency. We take a brand-centric approach, so we do a lot of brand strategy and help companies build that foundation on which to do their channel marketing and have better ROI as they go to market. We do websites, we do search engine optimization, we're a HubSpot solutions partner, so we do a lot of things. I have been in marketing for about 25 years, and you can imagine that's afforded me quite a bit of experiences, but even more than the average, I would say. I've been on the agency side, on the corporate side, a consultant for many years, and I started out in web design and development, and that evolved into a lot of different things, but I really have had always a passion for branding and brand strategy. And so I put up here some of the influences for me in my career that have really helped me formulate this idea of how brands can position themselves for success. So these are, there's some old school books in here that are gonna date me. Differentiate or Die. I think a lot of these were kind of from the late 90s era, maybe early 2000s. So the name kind of says it all there, Differentiate or Die. Differentiation never goes out of fashion, right? We have to do that. Positioning, another book by Jack Trout, the phrase perception is reality is one that you may remember, and you can't be all things to all people. So really winning in a niche is where it's at. And then the one-to-one future, this book was so far ahead of its time. When I was at T-Mobile and then Starbucks in the 2007 to 2012, 13 timeframe, we were still implementing a lot of these strategies around relationship marketing and personalization at scale. And in some ways, the technologies with automation and with AI are still enabling the vision of that book, 27, 8 years later. Building a Story Brand, how many of you are familiar with that book? Kind of, have you read it? No. I mean, it's probably in its, well, it says 2.0 up there. I don't know how many versions there's been, but there are still training workshops on story brand methodology going on out there. Donald Miller is an influencer. And what that book really helped marketers remember is that the customer is at the hero of the story. not ourselves, right? This is a tendency, a trap we fall into as marketers, is to talk about our products and why our products are so great. But we first have to identify with our customer problem. That's the way in. That's how we engage with them. And I love this mantra: if you confuse, you lose, right? We tend to make marketing messages way too complex, don't we? Sometimes, especially in B2B and technology products. So we've got some other sessions coming up. There's one taught by Daniel later in the day that you'll want to attend if you are interested in StoryBrand at all and simplifying your message. But I thought of these as I was preparing this message. Is there a common thread here that really led to my philosophy of brand-centric marketing? And I think that common thread is trust and building brand trust. Whoop. There we go. So the way that we're using AI in marketing is eroding brand trust. This is my assertion to start us out. 62% of customers or of consumers say that trust is critical in deciding whether to engage with a brand. 81% say that they need to trust a brand before buying. 77% of people prefer to do business with brands that they already know on social media, so that relationship is important. 50% say that they lose trust in a brand when they suspect AI-generated content. And 96% say that they don't trust ads, full stop. 40% of those say that when they notice AI content and ads, it feels fraudulent to them. Okay, so this should be kind of a little bit of a sobering wake-up call for us as we're, I think we're still kind of infatuated, aren't we, with AI technology and all that it can do for us and make us more productive. And lest you think that, well, people can't really tell that it's AI-generated content. Well, AI is getting better, and maybe that will be the case as we move forward, but 82% of people are saying that they can detect it. 72% say that brand messages have become more generic. 60% doubt the authenticity of online content. 50% are concerned with loss of human connection. So I think AI has really made us crave human connection, hasn't it? And 40% think less highly of brands that use AI-generated content. So again, sobering statistics that I think should make us take a step back and think about how are we creating that content, how are we using AI in our marketing workflows, and to do it in a way that will build trust rather than erode trust. Brands are becoming more fragmented and inconsistent. So for some of the reasons we just talked about, but also tools. Think of how many AI tools that we're using. How many tools are you using if you had to take a guess? I mean, ChatGPT, probably, we all use that one. 7 to 8? 5 or so, more than that? Yeah, there's a lot of these off-the-shelf tools that have come to solve specific problems, and so we plug them in different ways. But how are we ensuring that the content generated and the people using those tools across our organization are using them in a consistent way that's connected to our brand? And so with all these tools, with all the cooks in the kitchen, the messages are kind of all over the place, is my sense. Brand stewardship, I feel, is declining. Who's responsible for ensuring that the brand messages are on brand? Do you have folks in your organization that wear a hat, that are part of the approval process? Some of you, yeah. Or, one of the things that I've noticed over my years of marketing is we used to have this thing called a agency of record. Some companies, right? You'd hire one agency that was a full-service agency, and everything would flow through that agency, and they were really trained in brand, and they had the brand guidelines, and so there was kind of a gatekeeper. But today, I think it looks much different than that. We have more niche marketing vendors and providers in the mix. And so all of that, I think, leads to inconsistency. And then brand marketing investment has gone down relative to the investment in performance marketing, right? We're kind of addicted to driving short-term results. Performance marketing is a shorter cycle. It ostensibly fills the pipeline, and our leadership loves to see that. But a study actually came out earlier this year, I think, by the World Advertising Resource Center that showed that there's a multiplier effect. When brand marketing is brought up into balance with performance, we actually see better return on investment. And we see the opposite when there's an overinvestment in performance. So I'm seeing a lot of factors here that are not boding well for our brands as we enter a time frame where our brands really need to be strengthened and fortified in order for us to cut through the noise. Would you all agree with that? Yeah. So what do? How do we create unique and authentic content, and how do we do it consistently? So I'm going to introduce this concept of a brand operating system to you. And this is a 3-part system. And at the top, there's a strategy layer that is really a brand messaging framework. And we'll get into this in a second, but it's a messaging framework that is really rooted in the buyer's journey. The second is a process layer where we create thought leadership content, which again, I'll get into why that's so important. And then the third piece is a technology layer. And the thing that I'll describe here briefly is a custom brand GPT, which is a way for us to kind of embed all of this into the technology of our brand in lieu of or in replacement of all of these disparate tools that we're using. So starting out with the messaging framework, can we agree that if we can send the right message to the right customer at the right time, we'll have better marketing, we'll have better return on investment? Does that make sense? It's a concept that you may have heard before. And so that is what the buying journey or buyer, or the funnel is able to help us unpack. So how many of you have had to use this buyer journey approach where you have kind of a funnel and you define these stages of the buying journey? Most of you? Some of you? Okay. Well, let me get into this because there's a lot of different funnels. There's also other metaphors. There's a flywheel and an hourglass, and those are all great. This funnel approach, I think, is really helpful for breaking down the buying journey. And I want to give you a starting definition of these. And again, your brand and category might have different definitions or variations on this. But I want to start out with this. So top of the funnel, tofu, is when your customer is experiencing symptoms that lead to your solution. But the key here is that they haven't given their problem a name yet. Okay? So I'm feeling some back pain, right? A symptom. But I don't know why I'm feeling back pain. I might have slept wrong. I might have strained something when I went on a run yesterday. Not that I went on a run yesterday. I didn't. I may have some disc compression going on, or it could be a lot of things, but I don't know yet. But I'm experiencing symptoms. So at that stage of the funnel, our customers are going out and they're using the internet. Maybe they're talking to people, trying to figure out what the root cause is, right? Because they can't fix that problem until they know the cause. When we get to the middle of the funnel, this is where they've given their problem a name. And now what they're trying to do is they're exploring solution paths, the different ways that they can solve that problem. And at the bottom of the funnel is when they've decided on that solution path, and now they're comparing vendors or providers of that solution. So if you think about that for a second, you can imagine what a lot of companies do, because again, we're impatient, is we want to go straight to the bottom of the funnel, and we want to try to scrape and get those folks right when they're ready to buy, right? The problem is that everybody else is doing that as well. And so it gets more expensive to market at that stage of the funnel. There's a lot fewer people. The funnel narrows down. So it's hard to find those people, and you have a lot less time to establish and build trust and a rapport with that customer when you just start at the bottom of the funnel. So this is why we use this funnel-based approach. So the way this will look kind of zoom out, the vision for how this will evolve is you will have all of your personas, and each of those personas will have a buying journey. So in the B2B space, the way this often looks is you serve a number of industry verticals, let's say. And within each of those industries, you will have personas. Those personas will be stakeholders or influencers in the buying decision. And each one of those personas then will have a different funnel. They're going to have different things that are top of mind, different problems, different pain points, different concerns. Some of them may actually not have a full funnel. For example, you might have a persona that is a product manager that you sell to, and they go out and they're doing the initial research, and so they're going to be the first people to engage with you. But let's say a CFO might come in as an approver at the end of the funnel, and so they're going to be kind of oblivious to what's going on until you reach the bottom of the funnel. When we build these out, they're all going to look different. And so in this particular example, there's 4 industries. You've got all your different personas there. 3 personas per category. I'm using monsters and vampires there because it's Halloween month for my personas. And they're each going to have a top, middle, and bottom of funnel. So you might actually end up here with something like 36 segments. And this can be, an effort to build this out, right? You're not going to do it all at once. But what I would encourage you to do is to start with your core persona, the most important one, the biggest share of your business. Build that out, and then replicate and build out your micro segments and that kind of thing as you go. Because what you'll end up with here is a system where you want to go to market or do a campaign of some kind, and you can say to your agency or your in-house team, okay, who am I targeting? Which persona? What stage of the funnel is this email campaign going to catch them at? Middle, top, bottom? And you can kind of work your way right to that section that you've defined, and you know what their mindset is, what's important, what problems they're experiencing, how you can solve their problems, and what call to action you want them to take next to move them down your funnel, right? So this gets very powerful, and it's the very way that we give the right message to the right customer at the right time, okay? All that make sense? Yeah. There we go. Okay, so I want to walk you through how this will actually look to build this out. We won't have time to go through a whole buyer journey. So what I'm going to do is take you through a single stage, and we'll use a fictitious company here called Emberly Fireplaces. And this is a fireplace contractor. And we're targeting here homeowners who have recently become empty nesters, okay? And for the sake of this example, we'll just look at the middle of the funnel. And if you remember, at the middle of the funnel is where they have defined their problem, but they're exploring solution paths. So a mindset for them might be something like, our home is outdated, we need a remodel, right? So they've decided that their solution path is that they want to do some kind of a remodel. And so so the first step of this would be to look at problems, pain points, and needs. This is going to really get the juices flowing. What problems are they experiencing? You might just list things here like, our home no longer reflects our lifestyle, our priorities for a living space have changed, our home feels empty and not cozy, okay? And this will lead us right into defining what we call an accepted consumer belief, or an ACB. And what the ACB is it's kind of a negative frame of their mindset. It's going to be the thing that the key takeaway is going to resolve for them. So oftentimes this can look like a skepticism or a frustration or an unresolved issue, a barrier that they have to overcome. So it might sound like, it's time to put our own needs first for a change, but a full remodel feels impractical. Okay? And so the key takeaway is what we want them to think or feel instead of that at this stage. And so that, whoa. Hang on. Sorry. Almost there. Okay. So that might sound like a new fireplace adds practical, cost-effective luxury to our main living space. Okay, so you can kind of see how that's a direct pivot from the ACB. Now the reasons to believe are going to define why I should believe that key takeaway. So this would be things like a new fireplace costs a fraction of other remodel projects. Fireplaces are a focal point in my main living space. Fireplaces add ambiance and coziness. And the whole project can be completed in under 5 days. Right? So these become messaging points that can be used in your marketing when you're targeting this stage of the funnel with this persona. And then our calls to action. Our calls to action can be something like download a remodel comparison guide. Okay, so again, what we're trying to get them to do is decide on our solution path, right? A fireplace is where I want to go with this remodel. And from that, we have a lot of good input to help us with thought leadership content and topics. Okay, so some things here, empty nester remodel ideas, interior design inspirations, blog post ideas like making your home into a retreat, and home remodeling cost guide, which could be another downloadable that you could provide. And so you would do this for each stage of the funnel, and you would end up with a map like this. This is a simplified view, but you might actually put this into a Word document where you could be a little bit more verbose. And I say that now, I probably wouldn't have said that 5 years ago, but when we're using AI to help us draft and generate content, giving the AI more context can help it create better content for us. So you can email me at that email address, and I'll put it up again at the end of the presentation, and I can send you some templates and other helpful content to help with this process. This leads us into step 2 of the brand operating system, which is activating your subject matter experts, I'll call them SMEs from now on, to build thought leadership content. Okay, so we talked at the beginning of the presentation about how consumers are craving human connection, and they're not in love with AI-generated content, at least not yet. So the key thing here is to get the people in our organization who are subject matter experts. This can be your founders, your executives, your sales managers, your product managers, to commit to, let's say, 1 hour a month for an interview. So you as the marketer will schedule this interview. You'll use the buyer journey process that we just laid out, along with keyword research. You might be tracking trends in your market, and you're going to come up with these topics. And you can use AI, by the way, to create your interview questions, right? So you schedule this, you record it on Zoom, you put the transcript into ChatGPT and tell it to produce. I would start with a longer form piece of content, because then you can create pieces from there. You can say, like, create me a blog post, now create me a LinkedIn social post that leads back to that, something for the newsletter, et cetera. You can parse this into a lot of different pieces of content. And what you're doing here is you're putting the human at the start of the process. This is really essential, because the way we do things to be expedient, I think a lot of us, is we will just go to the AI tool and say, here's a topic, draft me this post. Maybe we say, here's my brand guidelines, or here's my, we give it some prompts to help it. But when you do that, the large language model that's behind the tool goes out to the internet and it paraphrases content that it finds on the internet, right? So let's say that you're a kind of a challenger brand and you're in a category where there's a big market leader. When you ask AI to write content that's relevant in your category, what is it doing? It's paraphrasing your competitor content, at least in some degree, at some point or some part. This is kind of the opposite of differentiation, isn't it? So when we have our subject matter experts create the content, the beginning content, we're feeding unique content into the tool and we're getting much better output. And we know that humans say that they can tell the AI content. Well, so can Google, right? So if you're using this content in part to get more brand visibility and rank on search engines and get into answer engines, you're probably spinning your wheels if you're overusing the AI to create the content. Once we get into a rhythm of creating this content, what we can also do is feed that content back into a custom GPT. So this is the third part of the brand operating system. How many people have experimented with custom GPTs? Oh, a lot of you. Awesome. The great thing about a custom GPT is that you don't have to remember to prompt it the same stuff over and over again. You've got really two main parts of a custom GPT, a custom instructions and a knowledge base. So the instructions are going to tell it what it's supposed to do, and you can evolve these as it creates content for you and it's not quite where you wanted it, you go in and you can tweak the instructions to dial it in, and then it remembers that. And then the knowledge base is where you can give it all of that buyer journey content that you're developing. You can give it brand guidelines, you can do some competitive research. I would definitely recommend that you tell it who the competitors are. But you can also feed back in this thought leadership content. And so this knowledge base is going to grow and grow and grow to the point where now you might actually be able to go to your AI and say, here's a topic, make me a post. Your instructions can actually include something like, hey, when I ask you to write content for me, I want you to use this as the source data you can give it some percentage, 80% level, so that you're instructing it not to go out to the internet or overuse stuff that your competitors and its default source data. Okay, so this is going to really get us moving in the right direction. I will say as a caveat that the custom GPTs, in my experience, they kind of start to break down at a certain level of complexity. I don't know if any of you have experienced this. Nevertheless, I think this is a great place to start. Once you find this to be the case, you can move into like agentic solutions and that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. So what he said was that the longer the prompt, it can give you better quality output. So that's true, especially if you're just working with vanilla GPT. The more you give it, the more it can use to dial in. When you're here in the custom GPT space, you're well beyond the 70 to 80 lines because you're giving it you can have dozens of documents in here. I think it does better with the knowledge base part. The custom instructions is where I think it can get hung up. I've had cases where my instructions have grown to such a point, and then I go and use the custom GPT, and it just ignores the instructions, and I'll write, why are you ignoring my instructions? And it goes, I don't know. I mean, so anyway, when that happens, it's probably a clue that you should code this into an agentic solution. So we've got another session where Daniel on our team will dive a little bit deeper into that. But that's the brand operating system. And again, if you email me, I'd be happy to hit you up with extra resources. This is another thing that we're doing here. We created this website, mygruntest.com. And I would encourage all of you to do that. You just go to that page and you're going to put in the URL of your website. and it's going to evaluate your website on clarity of message, as well as like search engine optimization and accessibility and some things like that. It's going to give you, I don't know how many pages of really helpful content. And that'll also connect us so that we can communicate and send you resources after the show.